This is going to be a how-to video on installing the Bray 6A pneumatic positioner to a rack and pinion actuator. Starting off, we'll go over the hardware that is needed. First off, you'll have your 6A positioner, mounting hardware, nuts to mount the bracket to the actuator, cap screws to mount the 6A to the bracket, coupler for the indicator shaft with indicator arrow, and a rack and pinion actuator. In this case, it'll be a double acting actuator. Okay, step one is going to be installing the bracket to the 6A positioner. To do that, you place the bracket onto the 6A and use the supplied cap screws to mount the bracket. Each cap screw is equipped with a lock washer. Using a 3/8 inch hex wrench, we will tighten all 4 bolts in a star pattern. Alright, our next step is to add the indicator shaft coupler. This coupler links the shaft of the 6A onto the shaft of the rack and pinion actuator. To do this, we need to make sure that the lock nut locks onto the flat of the shaft coming out of the 6A positioner. What we're going to do is we're going to rotate the shaft of the 6A to where the flat is pointed upwards. We will then take the coupler with the nut facing up and place it onto the shaft. Using a hex wrench, we will tighten the lock bolt. Ensure that you are rotating the shaft of the positioner while turning the coupler, and you're getting no slippage. Next, we'll add the yellow indicator arrow. This is an interference fit onto the coupler, so place it snugly. Now we can place the positioner and bracket onto the rack and pinion actuator. To do this, we'll lay the positioner on top, making sure the coupler links up to the pinion of the actuator. We will then use the supplied 4 hex bolts to mount the bracket to the actuator. With the bracket now attached to the actuator, we can begin to set the transmissions on the positioner. To do this, we'll remove the lid, and what we need to do is set the position transmissions that are located here and here on the positioner. This being a rack and pinion actuator from Bray, it is a 90-degree actuator, so both transmissions will be set for 90 degrees of motion. This dial will need to be set to 90 degrees. There's 2 options, 33 degrees and 90 degrees. Make sure the arrow is pointing to the 90-degree option. The second transmission is located in this slot right here. There are 2 settings. In this setting, where you can see the yellow from the front, where you have the labels, this is set for 33 degrees of travel, as stated by the graphic up here. To set for 90, we will push it forward, indicating 90 degrees of travel. That completes the mechanical setup for the 6A positioner. Now that the transmissions have been set, we can now set up the positioner digitally. The first step is to do an auto calibration so the positioner can learn the profile of the actuator. When you power up the unit with 4 milliamps, the control board will turn on. The first thing you're going to notice is going to say no initialization. This shows that this is a new unit and it needs to be calibrated. To go into calibration, we're going to hold down the hand button for 5 seconds, and the window will switch to the setup section. We're in window number 1, as stated in the bottom left corner. This is where we're going to tell what kind of actuator we're mounted onto. At the moment it's saying way, which is for a linear actuator. We will use the up and minus buttons to switch through this window to get to the turn section. This is to state that we're on a rotary actuator. We'll hit the hand button once to go to the next window, as indicated in the bottom left corner. We're in window 2. And this is where you state the degrees of travel. As default, it's going to be 90 degrees since we said turn, and we'll leave that as is. We'll hit the hand button again to go to the next window, and this is where we start the initialization. We'll hold down the plus button to start the calibration. Hold down the plus button until the calibration starts. The unit will perform 5 runs, which are 5 tests, to calibrate itself to the actuator. When you see the spinning loading sign, you know that it's doing work. When the calibration is finished, it'll state finished on the bottom of the screen. We'll hit the hand button to get out of the window. Hold down the hand button to get out of the setup windows. The unit will now spit you out into manual mode, which will let you use the up-down arrows to control the actuator. So this would be for close, minus, plus to open. To put it in auto mode so it listens to the 4 to 20 milliamp signal, we'll hit the hand button once, and it'll state auto in the bottom right. Now the positioner is ready for service. During your auto calibration, you can encounter this error. We know we're in an error code because you get a squiggly line in the bottom left, indicating an error has happened. When this happens during calibration, it means we have come out of the span of the potentiometer. What we need to do here is adjust the clutch to bring the span back in so the potentiometer can read the valve. To do this, we will go to the clutch mechanism found on the side of the positioner. This is the clutch wheel. We will adjust this clutch wheel to bring the actuator back into span. The first thing we're going to have to do is unlock the clutch This small access window here will let you stick a flathead screwdriver where you can access a yellow wheel. We'll move this yellow wheel counterclockwise to unlock the potentiometer. Now we'll be able to adjust the potentiometer by putting our thumb and sliding the clutch. What we'll do is we'll slide the clutch until we make a full circle in this character. So now we've created a full circle in this character, and we're ready to continue on with the calibration. We'll hit the plus button to continue. And the calibration will continue on for 5 runs. After you commission your 6A positioner and if you find you're having issues with chattering once the valve has reached this position, or sometimes people call it hunting, where the valve is looking for a certain position, this may be because the deadband is too tight for the application. We can increase the tolerance of the deadband through the programming of the 6A for better performance in the field. To do this, we'll hold down the hand button to get into the setup menu. This will pull us out from auto and into the setup. We'll go to parameter 34, which is the deadband setting. By hitting the hand button, you can cycle through the different windows. We'll go till the window indicates 34. From the factory, it will be set as auto, which is telling the 6A to achieve a 0.1% accuracy. We can adjust this by using the plus and minus buttons to change this setting. We can increase the tolerance to up to whatever percent is applicable to your application. In this example, we'll set it to 2. In cases with butterfly valves, the positioner doesn't need to do any controlling in the absolute closed position and the absolute open position. For example, travel from 1 to 3 degrees on a resilience-gated butterfly valve, no throttling is needed there. We can instruct the 6A to ignore loop power information for those fluctuations. So 4.1, 4.3 milliamps will be ignored, and the actuator will go full close. To do this, we'll go into the limits travel settings. So once again, we'll hold down the hand button to come out of auto. And this time we'll go to variable 39. From the factory, it's set to no. If I hit the up button, it'll let us establish an upper limit. This would mean you'll ignore loop power at a certain degree in the open section. If I hit up again, we'll bring up do. That'll just be for a lower limit. Up again, we'll do an upper and lower limit. In this example, we'll do both. We'll hit the hand button to go to the next window. This is where we'll set the value for the lower limit. From the factory here, as default, we'll do 0.5. We can increase this. We'll do 3%. So at 3% close, the unit will ignore loop power and go full close until a loop power signal comes back to the unit that is greater than 3% closed. Hit the hand button again. We'll do the same thing for the full open position. Right now it's set to 99.5. We'll reduce that to 98. Hold down the hand button to get out of the setup window. And then hand button once to pull out of manual mode and into auto.